I'm Jim Gooch. I'm the 12th District State Representative here, and I've been doing that for almost 22 years. I'm in my 11th term, seeking re-election in my 12th term. The 12th District represents either all or parts of 4 counties. We have all of Webster County, all of McLean County, and parts of Davis and Hopkins counties. And when I'm not, we're supposed to be part-time legislators, which that's not true anymore. We pretty much are full-time. And but when I'm not doing that, I'm an insurance agent, and then my brother and I have a steel fabrication business that I'm really kind of a silent co-owner of, not active in the day-to-day business, but we pretty much cater to the coal, rock quarry, and aluminum industries in that business. Unfortunately, our very way of life in not only this district but Kentucky is being threatened. And we have for many years we're in an area that produces a lot of coal. We've been able to use that coal to our benefit, and that coal has provided cheap electricity. Kentucky's had probably the 3rd lowest rates in the nation for quite some time until just recently. And we've taken that cheap electricity and we've actually built a large industrial state. People don't realize that. But to give you an example, the average state in the nation, 20 to 27% of their electricity goes to large industrial customers. In Kentucky, that's 49%. So, and we're talking about like the Toyotas and Ford Motor and the aluminum smelters and steel manufacturers and all those types of things. So, if something happens to our cheap electricity, it's not only the coal jobs that are going to go away, other jobs are going to be threatened as well. And one of the things that really concerns me is that the federal government is trying to dictate to us what sources we use for electricity. And and the thing that really is concerning is that we've had a Public Service Commission that was responsible in large part for those low rates, and because they made sure that utilities provided us with the most reasonable cost electricity and also the most reliable electricity. And with the implementation of the Clean Power Plan, reliability and affordability will no longer be primary concerns. It'll be environmental issues and the reduction of carbon. And that could drive up costs dramatically. We can put out lots of people out of jobs, especially in the coal area. And so I'm very concerned about that. And I know that a lot of those decisions are being made in Washington, but we have to fight back. And I've been doing that for several years. And I think that I'm probably one of the people that probably has one of the best understanding of energy issues in the General Assembly. Well, I consider myself pro-life, and I always have been pro-life, and I think that certainly the unborn has to have some protections, and I'm a little concerned that really what happens is that people on one side, try to say, well, we've got to overturn Roe v. Wade, and we got to do this, and the people on the other side say, that the unborn has no rights until the moment of birth, and so then nothing happens, and we're not saving any of the young children that are being killed. And I think that if we could at least come to some conclusions that certainly after a certain period of time, other than maybe life of the mother, that you can abort someone, we have to realize that unborn has some rights, and a lot of people don't think that, but they say, well, a woman's right to choose, but a woman's body doesn't have 2 beating hearts and 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 heads and all that. There is something else there, and that individual is someone so unique. I mean, there's their DNA, their footprint is totally different than anyone else's, and they deserve to be able to be born and live the life to the fullest. I think first we have to understand that when business locate here, they make a decision, and that decision is based on several factors, and we have to understand what those factors and what those concerns are, and we have to try to make sure that we are promoting ourselves in a way that meets those particular needs. I think we have to look at the positives that we have here, and we have a lot of positive things here. I mentioned earlier cheap electricity. We may not always have that, but as long as we do, that's been a competitive advantage. We have a really good workforce, hardworking, dedicated people that show up every day for the most part, and I think that's important. If we look geographically, We are pretty much in the center of much of the Midwest. We're really, I-69 is a proposed, you know, highway that's going to run from Mexico to Canada. When that is completed, and let me say that we're much further along on that project than I thought we would be at this time. But when that project is completed, we're about halfway between Mexico and Canada. And so I think that positions us very well to be able to ship products that are made here to, much of the rest of not only America but Canada and Mexico. Also, our river. We're around the river. There's an effort going on now to increase the width of the Panama Canal. We can ship products when that happens down the Ohio to the Mississippi, out the Gulf, down to Panama, and then to the Pacific. So I think that's going to be big for us. Our workforce, as far as the training that we have to make sure that our colleges and our businesses are working together to make sure that we're teaching the kids the skills they're going to need for the jobs that's going to be there. And we have to make sure that businesses are going to be there and providing the jobs that we're training our kids for. And so that just doesn't happen. It takes an effort. And so those are some of the things that I think we can do. We have to promote the positive things that we have. And it just takes an effort, a never-ending effort to do that. Well, as you know, the pension crisis is probably one of the biggest crises that's facing Kentucky. And the reason is that, we have an obligation there. We have an obligation to pay those benefits. And if there's not enough money there, then, the taxpayers will probably have to ultimately make that. And so we have to make sure that doesn't happen. And one of the biggest ways to do that is try to provide the funding that's necessary. But even if we provide the funding that's necessary, the system didn't get into the shape it's in strictly because the state wasn't putting in the money that we should have been putting in. We always have contributed the statutory required contribution to the pension system. But the system was set up in a way where they were expecting, I think, 7.75% rate of return on their investments. They have not been anywhere near that. As you know, last year the state pension system lost money, and so that's a real issue. We have a lot of folks. When you look at retirement benefits and you look at health care benefits, we really have a lot more. And maybe in some ways we provided a system that was maybe more generous than we really could afford, or that we were certainly putting the money in to pay for. So, but it's something, it's got to be our number one priority. I think it is with this governor, certainly is with me, and I'm hoping that we got to fix this problem. The question as to whether or not there should be more than one system, I think that we have to have more than one system. The reason is that teachers, for instance, don't get Social Security benefits pretty much, and so they have to have a system that's a little different, where other state employees can get Social Security benefits as well. So that has to be separate. Then you look at the state police, and then you have hazardous and non-hazardous retirements. I'm not sure there needs to be 7, but we have that system now. Whether some of them can be merged or not, I don't know. It'd be probably difficult because each of them have boards that are elected by their members, and they're going to be looking out for their interest. And so I'm not sure they could come to common ground. But we do need to make sure that the people on the boards of the pension systems have some understanding of finance and investing money and that sort of thing. And then we also have to make sure that we have transparency in the system. And part of the problem now is that we have a system where we're paying a lot of fees to money managers and other people, and we don't even know what those fees are. So we need transparency in the system to make sure that we understand where the money's going and whether or not we're paying more fees than we should. It's in the millions of dollars, the tens of millions of dollars, as far as fees that we're paying to people, and last year they lost money. So that's an issue, and it's some things that we have to do, but transparency is a big thing there. The question as to whether or not legislators should have pensions, I'm probably not a good person to ask that. We have a system where we are supposed to be part-time legislators, but really we're not. We're pretty almost full-time. And unfortunately, I've only had 1 or 2 years where my W-2 from my legislative job was even broke $40,000. It's usually less than $40,000. And so you have to have another job to be able to do that. And if you don't have that, then everyone that you have is either a wealthy person or a retired person. And we don't need that. We need people from all walks of life serving in Frankfort, bringing different perspectives and different ideas to the process. I don't think that the legislative pension system hurts us too bad, and the reason is that the average legislator only stays about 7.5 years, so they're not really there long enough to get a large pension anyway, because they don't have the time there. So. Well, I think that the voters would recognize and choose me over my opponent because they know that I'm tried and tested. And they know who I am, they know what I stand for, they know what I fight for, and I think they know that I have the work ethic and I've worked hard for this district. And so, with me, I'm someone that as opposed to my opponent, he is someone that is running a campaign that really is not really based on really even honesty, because he claims that he wants to bring change, that we need change in Frankfort. Well, we were at a meeting this week, we were talking to a group of retired teachers, and he actually made the statement that he was only running because I changed parties. And I'm not sure that's a good enough reason to run against somebody just because I changed parties. But what that is really saying is that he wants to keep this seat in Democratic control for one reason, and that's to make sure that Democrats maintain control of the House in Frankfort. Democrats have controlled the House since 1921. So he's really running just to keep the status quo. If you really want change in Frankfort, you'll elect me, and you will elect a Republican House, and we really will have change in Frankfort then. So my opponent is running a campaign talking about change in Frankfort, and he does not represent that at all. He represents the status quo. Appreciate this opportunity to address what I think is probably a critical issue that the voters have a right to know, and that is, because I did change parties, how am I different, or have I changed? And I think the simple answer to that question is no, I have not changed. I'm still the same person that I was. I was not a partisan Democrat, and I won't be a partisan Republican. And one of the reasons that I did change parties is I saw people that would get elected by people in their district. They would go to Frankfort, and when they had an issue, the first thing they wanted to find out was, well, what's the party's position? And I think that's wrong, because instead of representing a political party, you should represent the people from your district, the people that sent you there, the people that voted for you. There's three things that I've always tried to, that I guess have been guiding principles in everything that I do, and those principles are going to stay the same. The first is that I've always tried to say what I mean and mean what I say. I was taught at our age that your word is your bond, and so people deserve to hear what you really think, and so that's something that's very important to me. The second thing I've always strived to do is try to make sure that I'm working for the next generation and not just the next election. Too often we have complex problems that, and the solutions that we find really just get us past the next election. And so those are political solutions instead of long-term solutions. You cannot fix long-term problems with short-term solutions. And so that's the thing we have to do, is make sure that we're doing the things for the next generation and not just to get reelected or the next election. And the third thing I've done is I've always tried to realize that people sent me here, they deserve my ear. I can't always tell them what they want to hear, but my door should always be open. I should always listen to them, and I should always be attentive to their concerns. And I think I've always tried to do that, have an open door policy that allowed them to at least tell me what they think, and then I make an informed decision, after that.